Cultural relativism emerged in the 20th century as a product of Enlightenment values and in opposition to scientific racism, which was manifest in Western society as a means of justifying cultural superiority. The theory of cultural relativism was developed by Franz Boas, a German-born American anthropologist in the late 19th century. His theory derived its core values by drawing upon elements of the Enlightenment. This is particularly important as the Enlightenment was part of the scientific revolution and espoused ideas opposing the status quo. Boas's theories were thus considered radical at the time as they challenged prevalent conservative ideologies of ethnocentrism. The essence of Boas's ideas were expressed in his 1906 address at the Atlanta University at the invitation of W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the most prominent American sociologists of the 20th century. Boas said the inferiority of any race, if it exists at all, is insignificant when compared to the wide range of individual variability in each race. That there may be slightly different hereditary traits seems possible, but it is entirely arbitrary to assume that because perhaps they are slightly different, they must be of an inferior type. Boas strongly believed that there was little scientific foundation for the purported biological differences between races, merely environmental differences. He also believed that differences were not catalysts for inferiority and that the perception that one's own culture is superior, otherwise known as ethnocentrism, was false. Instead, he proposed that all cultures are equal, as they cannot be judged according to the values of another culture, thus directly opposing ethnocentrism in theory and scientific racism in practice. Boas applied his theory of cultural relativism to his own anthropological fieldwork, preventing any biased interpretation of his painstakingly gathered data and providing the basis for his rejection of scientific racism. His work in craniology provided objective evidence against scientific racism, leading him to conclude that the cephalic index has no direct biological significance, exposing the fraudulence of many theories used to justify the foundations of social theory since the 18th century, mobilizing a paradigm shift in anthropological American thinking. Boas's findings refuted scientific theories such as that proposed by Knott, causing him to further evaluate his theory of cultural relativism, claiming that differences between races were therefore environmental rather than biological. Boas's critical views and scientific conclusions were so pertinent that they were strongly evident in a statement regarding scientific racism made by the American Anthropological Association in 1998, in which they postulated it has become clear that human populations are not unambiguous, clearly demarcated, biologically distinct groups. Evidence indicates that most physical variation lies within so-called racial groups. This means that there is greater variation within racial groups than between them. Boas had thus disproved a theory centuries old, creating a paradigm shift in racially oriented American society. Armed with his theory of cultural revolution, Boas's work discredited historic hegemonic ideas of scientific racism, catalyzing a paradigm shift that would occur in the mid-20th century.